The man clenched the ruby in his hand. Lightning gathered in the palm of his hand. The sea surface instantly stirred up a storm. Legend has it that Elizabeth's blood and Dracula's tears created 13 extraordinary rubies. Obtaining these rubies grants power. After the clan war, some rubies went missing, while others fell into the possession of various vampire families, becoming the source of their power. Dracula, in order to save his beloved Elizabeth, swore to collect the rubies and turn humans into a puppet army, exchanging them for his lover from the hands of demons. The half-human, half-vampire girl Alisa successfully prevented Dracula from taking the power rubies. Now, she is leaving Italy with her lover Lars, preparing to set sail for England to visit the vampire Virad family, and continue her studies on vampires there. However, that spark energy has set a different path for Alisa. Naples, Italy, is the territory of the Nosferus family. A human boy named Nicu lies on the street. His mother, deceived by Dracula, has already turned into a shadow vampire. Alisa, the love of his life, is also a vampire. Nicu felt abandoned by the world, and had lost hope for his life. At this moment, his mother, Calvina, was locked in the underground dungeon of the vampire fleet, awaiting the judgment of the sun. Alisa felt somewhat sympathetic since Calvina was, after all, Nicu's mother. Suddenly, her spark power surged, and Alisa, through the dazzling light, saw Dracula approaching Nicu. Dracula used the salvation of Calvina as bait, attempting to persuade Nicu to join him, yet Calvina had already turned into a shadow vampire, and even if she were rescued, she would merely be a puppet. Nicu scorned the idea of joining the vampires, but Dracula claimed he could restore Calvina to normal.
I know you're there, Alisa, and I'm still coming for my rubies.
Alisa wasn't intimidated by Dracula. Instead, she went to ask the elders if there was a way to restore shadow vampires to normal. The elders confessed that some masters could perform rituals to release the shadows, allowing the puppets to regain their true selves and restore their human identity.
Why don't we release them all?
The elders couldn't help but scoff, asking why else would they do it. Of course, vampires needed servants. If all the shadows were released, who would serve them? Alisa was provoked by the shamelessness of the elders, and accidentally let slip that her friend, Ivy, was a shadow. As a result, Ivy was relegated to the logistics department since the upper floors were reserved for heirs and elders. Ivy suddenly reverted to her servant status, and intentionally started ignoring Alisa. At the same time, the elders set a date for punishing Calvina, planning to throw her onto the deck to be exposed to the sun tomorrow. After learning the news, Alisa couldn't help but blame Lars since his father was one of the decision-makers. Alisa couldn't bear to see Calvina burn to death in the sunlight, so she secretly opened the prison door and let her escape. Unexpectedly, Calvina betrayed and seized the opportunity to injure Lars' father, intending to steal the ruby for her master, Dracula. Fortunately, Alisa discovered it in time and locked Calvina in a coffin. However, Lars' father was injured by silverware and was on the verge of collapse. Feeling ashamed, Alisa ran to the deck and cried. She tore up her mother's notes, believing that she was unworthy of being the chosen one with the spark. Little did she know, those scattered pieces of paper formed a map. Alisa unexpectedly deciphered the clues left by her mother. With this, she could untangle her knot and defeat Dracula. On the other side, Nicu also made up his mind that he would do whatever it takes, even if it means joining forces with Dracula, to save his mother. But before that, Dracula wants to give Nicu a test. If he can replace his mother as the leader of the Red Mask organization, Dracula promises to release Calvina from her shadow identity. On Alisa's side, the elders, in order to punish her for releasing someone without authorization, lock her up in a dungeon for reflection, and the cell is right next to Calvina's. At this moment, Calvina has already regained her sanity and forgotten the recent events. She doesn't even remember having a son. This is a common problem among shadow vampires. They cannot hold on to memories and their sense of self. Greedy for information, Calvina eagerly asks Alisa to tell her more about her son. Alisa lavishly praises Nicu, not hiding her fondness for him. Meanwhile, Nicu is currently facing the defiant Red Mask on his own. The easiest way to gain their respect is through a duel. Nicu defeats the troublemaker and earns the respect of the Red Mask. Dracula, who has been observing in secret, leaves satisfied. Meanwhile, Lars, in order to save his father, changes the ship's course and heads back to their ancestral home in Norway. He asks the people of Troms to save his father, but they demand to meet Alisa in return. An elderly woman from Troms explains that the silver remaining in Lars' father's body is locking his beating heart. Only by allowing Alisa to enter Lars' father's mind can she awaken the dormant heart. Alisa immediately agrees. She infiltrates Lars' father's mind and sees the elders of various vampire clans planning to imprison her mother. Alisa continues forward, holding a torch, and finally catches up with Lars' father. He snatches away the ruby of the Grimer clan, This ruby that can make vampires immune to sunlight. Lars' father raises his hands and shouts, "Any vampire who wants to leave this battlefield must kneel before the Drakkars family." Just as he finishes speaking, his brother rushes over and informs him that their father's condition is not good. Lars' father quickly runs to his father's side. Knowing that his father doesn't have much time left, his father removes the ruby of the Drakkars family, hands it to his most trusted second son, Lars' father, and appoints him as the next clan leader. The eldest son is stunned, but the elder tells him that he isn't fit to be a leader, because there is darkness within his soul. At that moment, Alisa hears the cry of a baby, and the scene before her abruptly changes. The timeline jumps to the year of Lars' birth, and Alisa is moved by the heartwarming scene. Unexpectedly, the sparks in her hand emit a radiant glow. Lars' father realized her presence.
Why are you here?
I'm here to get you out.
Get me out. I'm with my family where I belong.
Alisa quickly explained, "Your brain has been invaded by illusions. Everything you see now is an illusion. The real Lars is waiting for you in the real world." Lars' father gradually regained his sanity. He noticed that his wife had turned into a grotesque figure. Hesitatingly, he grabbed Alisa's hand. In the next moment, they returned to reality, but Lars' father needs some time to rest and recover from his coma, before fully regaining consciousness. As for Alisa, she couldn't forget her mother from the illusion. Could it be that her mother was still alive? The next day, Lars instructed his subordinates to send his father to the Emerald Forest for treatment. During this time, he would take his father's place and temporarily become the leader of the family. His uncle had been diligently by his side, appearing to support Lars wholeheartedly. However, Alisa still remembered what Lars' grandfather had said about the dark side of the eldest son. Alisa intended to remind Lars of this, but he was called by his uncle to attend a meeting. Alisa had no choice but to investigate the imprisonment of her mother first. Through subtle clues from the illusion, she learned that her mother was likely held captive in Prison of Eternal Light. Lars' second sister, Helen, mentioned that the prison was located in the northern part of the forest, and expressed her willingness to take Alisa there. Accompanying them was Ivy, the shadow vampire. At that moment, the three of them had not noticed that the mysterious one-eyed man, Abraham, was following behind them. On the other hand, Lars was not swayed by his uncle's influence. Instead, he expelled him from the meeting room. The reason was simple. It was a meeting of elders from various clans. Uncle didn't have the qualifications to participate, so he left with a grudge. Lars' eldest sister, Cindy, worried that he might cause trouble, and bravely followed after him. Unexpectedly, she discovered that Uncle had a connection with Dracula. Meanwhile, at the meeting of the elders, they engaged in a heated discussion about how to deal with Alisa and Calvina. Lars was concerned about his lover, but couldn't go against vampire rules. Therefore, he could only postpone the matter, and suggested temporarily imprisoning the two in Prison of Eternal Light. However, the elders' expressions changed slightly, and they said it couldn't be done, because there was a special prisoner in the prison. Lars found it strange since the prison had been abandoned for centuries. He wondered who was imprisoned there. The elders had no choice but to confess that the person locked inside was Alisa's mother, Anna. Upon hearing this, Lars rushed out to share the good news with Alisa, only to learn from Shadow Heinrich that she had gone to the forest with Ivy and Helen. Lars immediately chased after the three. At that moment, Alisa and the others had arrived outside Prison of Eternal Light. They entered the dungeon. Alisa saw her mother at a glance, despite the sunlight shield between them. However, Alisa had already established a connection with Lars, who possessed the Grimer clan's ruby, allowing them to share the ability to withstand sunlight. She eagerly embraced her mother, and Alisa asked her mother why everyone had imprisoned her. Anna explained that the vampires wanted to protect their own clan. The elders were afraid that if she successfully resolved her knot, all vampires would revert to being human. That's why they imprisoned Anna, and falsely claimed she was dead. However, if Dracula finds the knot first, all humans in the world would become his shadows. As Alisa, the bearer of the spark, she had to make a difficult choice. While the mother and daughter were chatting and catching up, Lars arrived in time. He lifted the sunlight shield, granting Anna her freedom after centuries of captivity. Meanwhile, Cindy hurriedly returned to the base to inform everyone of Uncle's betrayal, but was preempted by him. Uncle captured the Pyra's family elder and took her ruby. Using the power of the ruby, Uncle summoned a pack of vampires' natural enemies, wolves, and threatened the elders to surrender their own rubies. As the young heir was held hostage by Uncle, Alisa's grandmother was the first to hand over her ruby. The other elders followed suit. At the same time, Abraham broke into the prison.
They're coming! Hi!
Lars had just planned to leave when he foresaw through the rubies that his uncle had arrived. Upon hearing this, Anna quickly hid her daughter, and then concealed herself within the sun shield, trying to pretend as if Alisa had never been there, because Uncle had multiple rubies in his possession. He easily took Lars away, while the remaining elders were all imprisoned. Alisa came up with a plan to rescue Lars. Unexpectedly, sparks flickered in her palm once again. She saw the devil asked Elizabeth to tell Dracula, "Help is coming your way." Alisa believed that the help here must be referring to Uncle offering the ruby to Dracula. She had to stop him as soon as possible. Ivy and Helen continued to follow behind to assist. They first rushed back to the base to prepare for diverting the pack of wolves surrounding the air and strive to rescue everyone before sunrise. Meanwhile, Alisa, the only one unafraid of the sun, became the designated bait. Ivy and Helen led everyone into a house. Soon, the sun emerged from behind the clouds. Alisa swiftly sprinted to evade the wolf pack. The hungry wolves were about to pounce on her. Suddenly, Helen rushed over and dragged Alisa into the house. It turned out that these cottages had hidden passages, which allowed her to arrive just in time to help. Alisa crawled into the secret passage to go to the small cabin where the heir was hiding and meet her younger brother. She told him, "Our mother is still alive." On the other side, Uncle was arguing with Lars. He blamed his father for not allowing him to inherit the position of clan leader, and resented his brother for taking over the entire family after the incident. By letting Lars take control of the entire family, he wished to kill Lars. But for now, this boy had other uses. The uncle said, "I have prepared a boat in the east. You must board the boat and leave tonight. Otherwise, I will kill Alisa's brother and all those little heirs." Lars had no choice but to agree. The uncle said, "After sunset, we will depart for Russia." Abraham, hiding in the shadows, heard everything. He quickly found Alisa and extended an olive branch of cooperation. "Since our goals are to destroy Dracula, why not work together?" Unfortunately, Alisa had no favorable impression of Abraham, as he was a renowned vampire hunter.
You've hunted my kind for years.
Not anymore. I just want Dracula.
He tried to convince Alisa. Abraham had no choice but to confess. He knew where the uncle was taking Lars and the rubies. Upon hearing this, Alisa agreed to cooperate. On the way, Abraham also told her that Dracula had buried some of the rubies in the beloved grave, which ordinary vampires couldn't even approach. So he needed Alisa's help.
You're a vampire too?
Something like that.
It seems that this vampire hunter also had untold stories. Meanwhile, Ivy, who was looking for Alisa, encountered the old woman from Troms. She said a bunch of cryptic words, and then pointed her finger at Ivy's forehead. On Nikyu's side, Dracula asked him to go to Russia with him.
We're going to get my rubies.
Dracula had a simple reason for choosing Nikyu, because Alisa liked this boy a lot, so Nikyu would definitely be useful. Dracula had his minions create a silver safe, and entrusted it to Nikyu for safekeeping. The box was meant to hold the rubies. On the other side, Alisa returned to the Elizabeth with Abraham. She was preparing to sail to Russia to rescue Lars. While Anna disagreed with her daughter's actions, she believed that finding the knot was the most important. Alisa was very disappointed upon hearing this. Anna had to call Ivy. She asked Ivy to relay a message to Alisa. The last puzzle piece regarding the knot is hidden in the Vermalia house.
Tell her it's always been right behind her.
As nightfall gradually approaches, several brave heirs make up their minds to follow Alisa and save Lars. Unexpectedly, Ivy grabs Heinrich, wanting to find out where Alisa hid the notebook. Between the lines, she reveals her dissatisfaction with this rescue mission, believing Alisa should prioritize the bigger picture and focus on finding the knot. Little did Ivy know that Alisa's brother overheard their conversation. With departure time approaching, Alisa rushes to bid farewell to her mother. Unexpectedly, sparks ignite once again, pulling her into illusion created by Dracula.
I'm bringing a guest. I believe you'll know each other.
The person behind the carriage is obviously Nikyu. Unfortunately, he cannot see Alisa's ethereal form.
Come and get him.
Alisa returns to the Elizabeth. Heinrich watches the ship set sail from the shore, but he suddenly realizes Alisa's brother, Eric, is missing. It turns out Eric was worried about his sister, so he secretly hid on the Elizabeth with his good friend. The two of them see Ivy finding the notebook as she completes the puzzle inside. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from the deck. Abraham notices a thunderbolt crack ahead. The ruby capable of creating this phenomenon is in the possession of Uncle. He and Lars are nearby. Uncle gazes at the Elizabeth behind him, firmly believing they won't survive this storm. The sea churns with towering waves. Rainwater mixed with seawater strikes the cabin. Ivy and Helen are still studying the notebook. They encounter a difficult problem. They can't decipher the date on one of the maps. Suddenly, Eric appears.
I think I know this one.
The date is Alisa's birthday. Ivy quickly understands. Alisa is the last one with the spark. She's the only one who can find the knot. Interestingly, this knot is quite magical. If Alisa unlocks it, all vampires in the world will become human. If Dracula unlocks it, everyone will become shadow vampires. Ivy shares her speculation with Alisa, but before Alisa can react, companion Malcolm comes to take Alisa away. Because daylight is approaching, she must go out to take over Abraham's shift to steer. The storm at sea intensifies. Alisa is quickly knocked down by a big wave. Seawater rushes through the gaps in the hull. Everyone can only use their hands to block the holes. Ivy anxiously watches the wet notebook. Her pupils suddenly turn white. The power left inside Ivy by the old woman takes effect. The waves on the sea gradually calm down. Vines with green leaves plug the gaps in the ship. Helen feels something is amiss. She secretly plucks a leaf and hides it in her pocket. On the other side, within Russia, Nikyu, under Dracula's instructions, transfers the hidden ruby from the graveyard into a silver box.
Keep this box close.
To prevent Nikyu from betraying him, Dracula keeps the key to the box himself. Meanwhile, the uncle and Lars successfully arrive in Russia. Lars questions the other person. Why did we come here, after all?
Skal du få møte stamfaren din.
Lars doesn't understand the meaning behind these words. However, the answer is soon revealed. Through her spark, Alisa sees the progress in Russia. Indeed, the uncle is going to meet Dracula. He wants to present the ruby to him, in exchange for what he desires. Dracula can't be bothered with these people, nor fulfill the promises he made to the uncle. He only wants the ruby. Dracula pushes the uncle into the sunlight, watching him turn to ashes, and then instructs Nikyu to pick up the uncle's ruby, and place it all in the silver box. Immediately after, he threatens Lars to follow him. Now, the two boys Alisa cares about the most have fallen into Dracula's hands. She watches everything happen but is powerless to stop it. Alisa's consciousness returns to her body. By now, the storm has completely passed, but her mood is exceptionally heavy, because Dracula has obtained all the rubies. Ivy reminds Alisa, we must first go to the Vermalia family, to get the final puzzle piece. Otherwise, rescuing Nikyu and Lars would be in vain. Alisa still wants to argue a few words, but Nikyu's mother and Lars' sister agree with Ivy's viewpoint. The most important thing now is to find the puzzle piece, and solve the knot before Dracula. Alisa has to give up rescuing Nikyu and Lars, and change course to the Vermalia family. Everyone has been exhausted all day, and wants to rest and sleep for a while. Unexpectedly, Eric grabs Alisa, and reminds her that Abraham still has a heartbeat. He is also a half-human, half-vampire. On the other side, Lars accidentally discovers that although Dracula has obtained all the rubies, he doesn't know the exact location of the knot. On the late-night Elizabeth ship, changes in Ivy become more and more apparent. She doesn't know what the old woman did to her. Just at this moment, Ivy hears the call of the old woman. The other party asks her to listen carefully to the voice of the mother of all. Ivy calms down, and actually hears the sound of a feather pen. She carefully follows the sound, and discovers Abraham copying the map. Ivy doesn't trust this vampire hunter, so she tells Alisa about it. Alisa immediately confronts Abraham upon hearing this. Unexpectedly, he explains that the cabin leaked last time, and almost destroyed his notes. He says he just thought it would be safer to keep a copy. After saying that, he hands over the map he copied last night to Alisa. Abraham, in order to prove his loyalty, confesses that he has a heartbeat. It turns out that Abraham is a descendant of both vampires and humans. His vampire father was cruel and ruthless, causing his mother a lifetime of suffering. That's why Abraham became a vampire hunter. But he alone cannot eliminate all the monsters. Only by helping Alisa resolve the knot can the vampire empire be brought to an end. Just at this moment, land appears on the horizon. They have finally reached their destination. Alisa, Calvina, and Ivy go to find the map. The rest of the people stay behind to guard the Elizabeth. Before leaving, Alisa instructs Eric to keep an eye on Abraham. After arranging everything, the three of them enter the harbor city, and quickly find the Vermalia family residence. Several Red Mask members are standing at the door. Alisa and her two companions disguise themselves as party members and approach. They overhear the password for entry. They easily blend in and enter. It turns out the Red Mask is having a meeting inside. They are planning how to eliminate all vampires. Alisa and her two companions navigate through the excited crowd. They go upstairs to search for the final puzzle piece. Unexpectedly, sparks from Alisa suddenly glow. She suspects that the puzzle piece must be nearby. Ivy picks up a family photo on the table. It shows a young Alisa with her siblings. She suddenly remembers the hint left by Anna.
Tell her it's always been right behind her.
Could it be that the puzzle piece is hidden behind the photo? Ivy immediately takes apart the frame. Indeed, she finds the final puzzle piece behind it. In their excitement, they accidentally make some noise. This attracts the attention of the Red Mask members at the door. At this critical moment, the Red Mask member in front removes their mask. The person turns out to be Heinrich. Alyssa joyfully rushes into his arms. But the next moment, sparks flash again. Dracula's face is reflected in the broken glass.
Thank you for showing me the way.
The Red Mask downstairs also notices their presence. At this moment, Alyssa has found the final puzzle piece. As long as it is combined with the map in the notes, they can determine the location of the knot. Unexpectedly, they are besieged by the anti-vampire organization, the Red Mask. At a critical moment, Calvina comes up with a plan. She pretends to hold Alyssa and the others hostage. The Red Mask recognizes Calvina as the leader of their headquarters. They immediately cease their attack.
Do you have a holding cell?
Yes.
We'll take them to it.
Calvina falsely claims to interrogate the 3 vampires, to uncover their remaining forces. However, the local leader is not a fool. He senses that something is amiss, so he secretly keeps the puzzle piece. In order to gain their trust, she volunteers to execute a vampire first. Calvina knows that Alyssa is not afraid of sunlight, so she intentionally chooses her to face the punishment. A lackey takes Alyssa outside.
How is that possible? That she doesn't burn in the sun?
The 2 of them successfully obtain the cell keys and the puzzle piece. Alyssa immediately rescues Ivy and Heinrich. The 4 of them leave this place. On the other side, inside the Elizabeth ship, her companions notice that Alyssa hasn't returned. They want to take the risk and go out to search. Malcolm disagrees with this approach, because Alyssa instructed them not to leave the cabin no matter what happens. Unexpectedly, Abraham volunteers to go out and meet Alyssa. Eric knows that his sister doesn't trust Abraham. Just as they regret letting him go, Alyssa and the others return safely. Everyone is curious why Heinrich is here. It turns out he noticed Eric sneaking onto the ship. He was concerned, so he came early to meet Vermalia and the others. From the beginning, Heinrich believed Alyssa would make the right choice, to give up going to Russia, and come to Vermalia to find the puzzle piece. The reality proved that he didn't wait in vain.
Where's Abraham?
Abraham found the leader of the local Red Mask. It turns out they knew each other long ago.
When I destroyed Dracula, and I get my hands on all the rubies, I'll finally have enough power to rule over them.
Abraham's true intention was to rule the world with the ruby, to surpass all vampires and humans. Alyssa has already fallen into a trap. Seeing the map being completely burned, she reaches into her pocket, realizing that the hand-drawn copy is also gone. Abraham must have stolen it. Meanwhile, Dracula leads Nicu and Lars to the border of Transylvania. Lars takes advantage of the gap when repairing the carriage. He quietly approaches Nicu. He tries to persuade him to help open the silver box, so they can destroy the ruby, to prevent Dracula from opening the knot. Nicu is convinced by Lars. So, after Dracula falls asleep, Lars bites through the iron chain with the key. Dracula didn't actually kill Lars, but he won't tolerate such a situation happening again. Meanwhile, Alyssa also learns through sparks that Dracula will arrive in 2 days. They must prepare for battle. She not only needs to retrieve the map copy from Abraham, but also find a way to steal the ruby. That night, Ivy dreams of the eerie old woman, seeing her about to lose control. Luckily, Helen wakes Ivy up. She recognizes the patterns on the woman's legs, knowing something has happened to Ivy.
You're becoming the next Whitey.
This is the birth of a new prophecy. Ivy will gain the power of nature and establish a connection with the mother of all. At that moment, Abraham pays a visit. Abraham asks Alyssa to help him collect the rubies. In return, he promises to hand over the map copy. However, Alyssa has been deceived once before. She won't easily agree to cooperate. On the other side, Ivy worries that Alyssa might be deceived. She uses the power of Noadi to eavesdrop on their conversation. Unexpectedly, in the middle of listening, a pair of hands suddenly extends from the wall and drags Ivy into an illusion. The old woman said the knot is hidden in the nearby cave. I can take you in to have a look. Ivy explains that she doesn't have the spark and can't enter at all.
But your best friend does. She'll help us.
Just as the words fell, Alyssa's spark mysteriously appeared and successfully opened the cave door, but she wasn't sure what happened. Ivy followed the old woman into the cave. The old woman explained that the spark is actually Dracula's humanity. When it combines with the ruby, it forms Dracula's heart, becoming the key to unlocking the knot. And every person attempting to untie this knot must pass the 5 tests of humanity. Alyssa needs Ivy's help to pass the final test. Then the old woman reminds Ivy that the power of the spark will gradually diminish. If you can't untie the knot before the solar eclipse ends, Dracula will win, and the power of the spark will also disappear. Since Ivy is immersed in the realm of consciousness, her physical body remains in a coma. This greatly worries Alisa and the others. Unexpectedly, Calvina suddenly goes mad and instantly loses control. This is a sign that Dracula is getting closer. Only when the distance between Calvina and her master, Dracula, is reduced, will the shadow vampire Calvina be under his control. Just then, Ivy suddenly wakes up. She tells Alisa, "You must complete the mission within 3 days. Otherwise, when the solar eclipse ends, everything will be lost." In other words, Alisa has to cooperate with Abraham to exchange the ruby for the map. In order to find Dracula's ruby, she intentionally released Calvina, because the shadow vampire will definitely go to find her master, so they just need to follow behind. The group follows Calvina to an abandoned factory. Sure enough, they see Dracula. Niku immediately embraces his mother and asks Dracula to release Calvina from her shadow form. But unexpectedly, he goes back on his word. Alisa steps forward upon seeing this. She shouts for Abraham, who is waiting outside. He brings a large group of Red Mask members. A great battle becomes inevitable. Both sides roar and charge towards each other. This battle can be described as a lose-lose situation. Abraham shoots Dracula with a silver bullet, but Alisa also develops a high fever. Just like Dracula, the group transports both of them back to the Elizabeth. However, Malcolm and the others are captured by the Red Mask during the chaos. During this time, Lars, who recovers the ruby, attempts to enter Alisa's consciousness to save her, but unexpectedly discovers that Alisa's thoughts are intertwined with Dracula's and have become inseparable. He cannot separate Alisa from it.
She has to fight the fever herself. She has to find her own way out.
Meanwhile, Alisa falls into Dracula's realm of consciousness and witnesses the vampire's past. He once had a happy family of 3, until Constantinople was attacked by the Turks. Count Dracula was ordered to fight against the enemy. Unexpectedly, during his absence, his son was kidnapped by the enemy. Rumors circulated that Dracula was defeated and died a miserable. Countess Elizabeth, devastated by grief, chose to end her own life. So when Dracula returned victorious, he only saw his wife's lifeless body. Dracula, devastated by the loss of his beloved, felt unbearable pain and chose to renounce God. His humanity turns into sparks and separates from his essence, even if it means enduring the flames of hell for eternity. Dracula has no regrets for wielding his sword against God for his beloved. Meanwhile, Eric, in order to rescue Malcolm and the others, goes alone to the Red Mask's base to make a deal with Abraham. Abraham instructs Eric to steal the remaining 3 rubies in exchange for Malcolm, Joanne, and a copy of the map. Eric looks puzzled upon hearing this. He knows Lars has 2 rubies, but he is unaware of the whereabouts of the third one. Abraham says the remaining one is the beloved ruby, hidden inside Dracula's stomach. Malcolm, on the side, shakes his head repeatedly at Eric, hoping he won't do something foolish. In Dracula's realm of memories on the other side, Alisa attempts to persuade him to let go of the knot, even if it means making a deal with the devil. It cannot change what has already happened. Just as she finishes speaking, Elizabeth unexpectedly appears. She also doesn't want Dracula to make further mistakes.
You still have a beautiful soul, my love.
At this moment, that beautiful soul transforms into sparks and rests in Alisa's palm. The appearance of his wife shakes Dracula's beliefs. At this moment, Eric hurriedly runs back to the ship. He confesses Abraham's suggestion. Upon hearing this, Alisa proposes cooperation to Dracula.
Why do you think I would do that?
You need me to defeat him.
After being archenemies for 2 seasons, they suddenly transform into temporary allies. They decide to join forces to eliminate Abraham, and then address their own issues. After reaching an agreement, both of them regain their consciousness. To show sincerity, Dracula finally removes Calvina's shadow identity, returning memories and her true self. Yet, before setting off to find the knot, Alisa must first rescue Malcolm and Joanne. Niku and his mother go ahead to scout, to understand the Red Mask's patrol patterns. However, all of this is a cover-up by Abraham. He has already set traps in secret. Alisa remains completely unaware of this.
It's a trap. You're being played.
Dracula has a plan to rescue Malcolm and the others. He asks Alisa to hold him hostage to divert attention, while the others take the opportunity to rescue them, steal the rubies and the copy of the map. Ivy still doesn't trust him. Dracula is left with no choice but to regurgitate the beloved ruby from his stomach and entrust it to Alisa for safekeeping, as a proof of his trustworthiness. Meanwhile, Malcolm, who is being held captive, doesn't just wait idly. He suddenly realizes he has turned 18. He has the ability to manipulate human thoughts forcibly. However, the entire base is under Abraham's influence. Malcolm can only utilize 70% of his power. He can't make the Red Mask assist in opening the door, but he can command them to steal the copy of the map.
How is that map gonna get us out of here?
The lackeys quickly steal the map. To avoid attracting Abraham's attention, Malcolm and Joanne divide the work. One person memorizes half of the map. Unexpectedly, Abraham returns at a critical moment. He immediately notices his subordinates being hypnotized by vampires. He orders his men to search them, to check if Malcolm and Joanne made copies of the map, but they memorized it in their minds. The search yields nothing. Meanwhile, Dracula, Alisa, and the others have arrived at the Red Mask's base. They are prepared for battle. Abraham is also ready for them. He is adorned with numerous rubies. Alisa first presents 2 rubies and Dracula behind her. She demands Abraham to release the hostages first. Before she hands over the 3rd ruby, the Red Mask brings out the bound captives. Unexpectedly, Malcolm shouts at Alisa, "Don't give him the ruby. He won't let anyone leave." Abraham urges Alisa to quickly hand over the ruby. The few individuals execute their tasks meticulously according to the plan. Unexpectedly, Abraham suddenly uses the power of the ruby. He lifts several airs into the air. In a critical moment, Ivy's energy erupts from within. Countless thick vines surge towards Abraham, dragging him underground. Nevertheless, Dracula takes the opportunity to slip away with the ruby and the copy of the map. It seems the alliance has come to an end. A new war begins immediately. Alisa uses sparks to detach her consciousness. In the blink of an eye, she instantly appears in Dracula's car. Dracula now possesses the copy of the map and the ruby. He even secretly made a copy of the last puzzle piece in Alisa's possession. This blueprint is a crucial key. Just as Dracula is feeling triumphant, he hears Alisa's question.
You really think I'd leave the real key lying around for you to copy? You think I'm that stupid?
It turns out that Dracula made a fake copy. He immediately shouts in anger. When Alisa returns to the Elizabeth, Malcolm and Joanne have already drawn a copy of the map. Based on their memory, Alisa then takes out the real puzzle piece and releases sparks through the holes, successfully locating the position of the knot. On the other side, Dracula doesn't give up either. He attempts to use the ruby as the key to unlock the knot's position. After all, the ruby is created from Dracula's blood and Elizabeth's tears. They are inherently connected to the knot. On the protagonist's side, victory is within reach. However, Lars appears gloomy because no one knows what will happen to Alisa, who is half human and half vampire, after the keyhole is opened. Similarly, Alisa feels confused. She is not afraid of what might happen to her, but she fears losing the people around her. After all, whether it's her grandmother or Heinrich, they have already surpassed 100 years. Reverting to being human means losing immortality. Those older vampires might turn into a pile of bones the moment Alisa unlocks the keyhole. At this moment, a faint sadness fills the Elizabeth. They have finally arrived at their destination. Unexpectedly, Alisa's sparks reappear. She is shocked to realize that Dracula has actually deciphered the keyhole's position, and he arrived ahead of everyone else. Everyone quickly heads to the cave where the key is hidden. Unexpectedly, the area outside the cave is filled with crosses. Helen finds it strange upon seeing them. If the Eddie people want the vampires to unlock this key, why would they arrange crosses? After Alisa listens, she questions everyone. Does anyone feel uncomfortable seeing the crosses? Only then do they realize that the crosses here are not sanctified. They are just illusions to intimidate. They gather their courage and break through the defense line. Alisa uses sparks to open the stone cave's door. Next to it is Dracula's ruby. It seems he also used the power of the ruby to open the door. Without delay, they enter the cave. Ivy reminds everyone, to unlock this knot, we must face 5 tests. We have already passed the first test, crosses, just now. We must remain vigilant from now on. Only Dracula stands ahead. There are 13 mirrors inside the entire cave. By the initials on the mirrors, we can tell. Each mirror represents a clan. There is also a stone tablet on the ground. It is engraved with "You" on top.
I think we have to find our own clan's mirrors.
Upon hearing this, everyone stands in front of their respective mirrors. They see another version of themselves in the mirrors. The consciousness of the vampires is pulled into the mirrors, leaving only a lifeless shell standing in place. As a human, Nikyu looks confused, not knowing what has happened. At this moment, Alisa follows her darkened self and enters the illusion of the Elizabeth. She sees herself when she first arrived, being bullied by the other heirs. But this time, the darkened Alisa fights back.
This is the real you. Your soul is as dark as Dracula's.
The darkened Alisa tries to brainwash her. Even if you unlock this knot, the world will still fall into darkness. The darkened Eric also tries to brainwash the real Eric. Your sister doesn't care about you. She only loves Lars and Niku. That's why she insists on unlocking the knot, regardless of the lives of your grandmother and Heinrich. And if the knot is unlocked, your sister might die too. As Eric is about to waver, Alisa suddenly remembers the advice on the stone tablet. She quickly changes the conversation and tells Eric, "These dark and restless thoughts do belong to us, but everyone has a dark side. What we need to do is balance and suppress it. We must not let negative emotions control us." After hearing this, Eric indeed regains clarity. He instantly absorbs his darkened self. The siblings successfully leave the mirror world, and they give advice to their trapped companions.
You are what you are, good and bad. It's okay. Be proud of what you are. You don't have to be ashamed about anything.
Several heirs wake up one after another. They successfully pass the second round of tests. Then, a door appears in front of them. Ignoring Dracula, who hasn't woken up yet, everyone walks into the door. Inside, there is a glowing device. It is engraved with, "Survival depends on unity." The next moment, the walls start leaking water. Everyone rushes to block the gaps around, but it's all in vain. Malcolm remembers the inscription on the basin. He quickly gathers everyone in a circle. They all rotate the glowing device together. As expected, the water disappears the next moment. They pass the third challenge, but the problem is Malcolm, Eric, and Joanne cannot free themselves from the device. Alisa can only lead the remaining people forward. The fourth challenge is somewhat special. There is a large drum inside the tent. The old woman taught Ivy how to play it. Several stones are scattered in front of the drum. They are engraved with peculiar patterns. Ivy recognizes these hieroglyphics. They form a short sentence. Faith lies in one's confidence in oneself. At this moment, a lunar eclipse has begun, with the alignment of the sun, earth, and moon. Before the solar eclipse occurs, they must resolve the knot. On the other side, Dracula finally passes the second challenge. He was almost trapped in a beautiful illusion with his wife. Dracula hurriedly proceeds to the next level. Meanwhile, Ivy just needs to strike the drum correctly to unlock the fourth challenge.
I've never gotten it right. Not once. I have faith in you. We all do.
The inscription on the stone also said, "The secret to clearing this level is confidence." The support of her companions gave Ivy courage. She tightly grips the drumstick and strikes the drum in the order she remembers. Indeed, it causes the lunar eclipse to pause. Helen stays behind to accompany Ivy and continues striking the drum. Alisa and the other three continue moving forward. The fifth challenge presented by the knot is very tricky. She needs to choose between Niku and Lars. One represents a vampire, and the other represents a human. Alisa is hesitating. The moon above her head turns red again. This also indicates that Dracula has entered the fourth challenge. Alisa must make a decision quickly. In this moment of hesitation, both options are gone. Instead, Dracula appears leisurely. The reason for his fast speed is that Alisa had already cleared the previous challenges, long before Dracula's arrival. Dracula's appearance turns the final challenge into a multiple-choice question. Now, Lars, Elizabeth, and Niku are hanging in front of the knot. The next moment, Alisa's spark ignites. She senses the connection between the light and Dracula. Suddenly, she realizes something.
I'm not the one who needs to untie it. You do.
The spark was Dracula's humanity all along. Only when it combines with its owner can it influence the knot.
Your wife never wanted to be a monster.
Why did you do it, my love? Take the deal, turning me into a monster.
Alisa looks at Dracula, tormented. She can't help but think of another possibility. Perhaps they don't need to change the current situation. The world is not all black or white. Light and darkness are meant to be balanced.
We're not here to untie the knot. We're here to destroy it.
They finally understand. After Dracula bids farewell to Elizabeth, he destroys the knot with his own hands. Humans don't turn into vampires. Vampires don't all become human. There is still good and evil in this world. The scale maintains its balance. Everything returns to its original state, and Alisa finally sees her own heart clearly. She may still have feelings for Niku, but she has already fallen in love with Lars, who is always by her side. The story of the second season comes to an end. A conflict between black and white lasted for 2 seasons. In the end, the story reveals that white won. Yet, the ending indeed sublimes the theme. The world can't have only light, nor can it have only darkness. Only the coexistence of both can maintain order. As a half-human, half-vampire, Alisa serves as a bridge between the two realms. Her task is to restore humanity to Dracula. Together, they destroy the knot. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription.